created the table, I'm just going to quickly save it, and then I'll go ahead and add some other elements, and then I'll add the details like stuff that's on the table, or maybe I want to add some interesting drapery on the table, or I want to add some engravings in the table, or I want to add some scratches, some burn marks. All those kind of things I do later. For now, I just make the basic shape. I've made the front counter shape table. I'll add the details later. Let's go ahead and make maybe, I'm trying to figure out the best way to try to visualize the weapons. And since we're in a tent, maybe I think it would be more interesting and unique looking not to have some kind of shelf system that displays the weapons, but have them hanging from the ceiling. And then that way it looks a little bit more interesting. It fits more with, I think, the more orc aesthetic. So I'll end up doing that. Let's go ahead and let me change up the tent a little bit. So I want to give you an example of how I would kind of change it up. So with the tent, you know how with a tent it's drapery and it has folds? So what I'll do here at the bottom is I'll just add a little bit. I'm going to take my softness all the way off, and I should have this brush. You can see I turn the softness off, and I'm going to create a little bit of curve at the base here, because that is what cloth does, right? It doesn't fold perfectly straight. And so to kind of give it more of the illusion of a tent, I'll kind of break the perfect straightness of it. And I think that works out a lot better there. So that looks good. I have that front desk. Let's do that. Okay. Let's go ahead and have some stuff hanging, some weapons hanging. So let's start by choosing some weapons. And I think there should be some orc weapons. And you can see that there's some other weapons that are coming with 2.0, like some dwarven stuff. And then also there's like bombs, dynamite. There's going to be all kinds of cool stuff, more revised stuff. So you'll see there's a lot of cool new weapons that will be kind of coming out with 2.0. So that will be very helpful. So let me just go over to the orc pack itself. That makes it a little bit easier so I can all stick within the same theme. So orc here, and there's, you can see the weapons here. I'll go ahead and just take every single weapon and just kind of place them on the map here. Let's see, that's a weapon. Let me see what other weapons we have. I think for now, those will work well. That works great. Okay. And I'm probably going to want to scale them up a little bit so they're a little bit bigger. And then I'll rotate them to where they're all kind of facing upward, like this. I think that looks good. This looks good. There we go. All right. Now, if they're going to be hanging, there needs to be a way for them to hang, right? So what I might do is put a loop at the top of each one of these so that that way either a rope or a chain can kind of connect to the weapon as it dangles down. So I'll go into maybe the shape tool. I'll go to circle, and I'm going to pick something to work as like a loop. I'm not sure what to use here. We'll go over, I think maybe a pipe. A pipe might work well. You notice here we have this small copper pipe, this metal pipe right here. This might work well. I'll take the circle shape. I'm going to make a very simple circle. I'm going to bring the size down like this. I think that looks good. And I'm going to turn the shadow off on it. And then I'll go ahead and take that. And I might want to change, bring the saturation down, bring the brightness down. And I'm going to take that and put each one of these, copy and paste, onto each weapon like this. So now that each weapon has a way to hang, so that works out well. So I'll group it, call this one a sword. Create, sword is done. Create, this will be an axe. And I'm not sure what you would call this one. Actually, some kind of axe or maybe a crescent of some kind. I'm not sure. Okay. So we have those weapons there. That works out just fine. Now, when I'm making this, I'm going to go ahead and when I'm having them hang from the ceiling, the way that I'll do it is I don't want them to be all hanging at the exact same height. A sickle? Oh, yeah, that's a good one, Chesbeck. A sickle sounds right. I'll probably change the name of that later. So when you are hanging the weapons, there's a way that you want to show depth. And the first thing is that you don't want them all hanging at the exact same length. I think having various lengths of them hanging will be more interesting. So, and I think what I'll do is I'll have maybe like the axe hanging down the lowest. I'll have a sword hanging right here, and then having the crescent be a little bit closer while the sword's a little further away. So I think about that looks good. Like that. And next I'm going to go in and choose either a rope or a chain. That's up to you. I think a chain is going to look more interesting. It's a little more intimidating. And we'll use like a hell chain so it's spiky. I think that will be more interesting. And I'll change that saturation. I'll bring the brightness up just a little bit. And I'll quickly put one chain down. And I'll use the pen for this. And then I'll kind of look at it just to see what it looks like. Is it the right size? Is it the right scale? I think that looks about right. I'll turn the shadow off. And then I'll just take that and just place this right on top like that. Copy and paste that chain. Copy and paste another one. Perfect. There we go. So now I can group the whole thing, create group, and we'll call it hanging sword. Perfect. That one's done. Create group, hanging X. Great. And then this one can be hanging sickle. Thanks to everyone for catching on that. Awesome. Or sorry, hanging, not the hanging part. Perfect. Cool. Now that we have that put together, that's helpful. So we have our nice weapons hanging here. Now, if you wanted to show depth, like how is it that I show that maybe the sword is further back than the axe? How would I go about doing that? That's not complex. There's a couple things you can do. One, you can use overlap, right? To show that the sword is behind the axe, simply place the sword behind the axe, right? There's that first step. But what happens if they kind of blend together? You notice that they're on the same brightness. So I can use contrast to show depth. So let me give an example. So if I select the sword and I open it up, and I select specifically the sword and I bring the brightness down just a little bit to where it's noticeably darker than the axe, you'll notice that now it creates this sense of contrast where the sword looks like it's further in the background while the axe is closer to you, right? So you're going to use brightness and you're going to use overlap to create depth. So that's really the secret. And what I might want to consider doing is taking some other weapons, so maybe like some axes and some other weapons from other packs, and throwing them in here using different depths and different tricks. So like with this one, I wanted to show that maybe this one is also kind of behind it. I'll kind of just bring the brightness down on this weapon. In fact, I might even want to flip it a little bit so that way it's facing that way, and I just bring the brightness down a little bit. Just remember that when you do the brightness, it has to be considerably or noticeably darker than what's in front of it, right? So in other words, you don't want to have it to where it's like so dark that it's just pure black, basically. Otherwise, you're trying to show that it's way in the background, but you also don't want it around the same brightness as the thing in front of it. So again, noticeably darker than what's in front of it. That's going to be very, very helpful, okay? So I'll put that there, and I'll put this one here. Let's go ahead and select them all and kind of have them hanging like this. And then I'll probably want to create some other weapons as well. I can just type in weapon in the catalog, and then we'll take some already existing weapons as well. Like this mace, I think, is kind of an intimidating weapon. It works well. This kind of club with spikes in it is a nice one. I'm trying to think what else ones we can use. I think those should be enough, actually. Those should be enough. I'm checking to see if there's any other weapons that might work well. I think those should be enough. So let's go ahead and add those. I'll go ahead and turn the shadow off for both of them. I don't need those. And then I'm also going to grab that loop from within the group. I'm going to scale these down just a little bit. There we go. And then I'll add that loop. One there, one there. There we go. So we have those loops. And I'll go back in the group and grab the chain. You're going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting. That's something that you do when you're creating anything. It doesn't have to be a shop. It could be a fantasy world map. It could be a parchment map. It could be a battle map. Whatever it might be, right? So we'll create this group. We're going to call it a hanging club, spiked club. And this one right here, I believe, is a mace. Spiked mace, I think. Hanging spiked mace. Nice, there we go. Okay, so now you have all of those elements here. That's perfect. So I'll go ahead and bring some in the foreground. I'll put this one in front, so it's kind of in front of it with the overlap. That spike right in the front helps to make that pop out more. Put a little bit of overlap right here, and I'll kind of put this one maybe a little higher up. And then also, if you want to show depth, you can also make things in the far background a little bit smaller. Because we're in a shop, there's not much distance, like there's not going to be like a mile away, but you can show some depth differences by just bringing it down just a little bit smaller. So you can do that as well, just to let you know. Just remember that if you want it to be in the further background, you have to bring the brightness down quite a bit more. And because that's quite a bit darker, I want to do the same to these as well. That chain loop is going to be a little bit darker, and this chain is going to be a little bit darker as well, just for that continuity, right? There you go. So now you kind of have these weapons that are kind of hanging